This is the Strait of Hormuz, and yeah, it might look small on a map, but don't get it twisted. This narrow stretch of water quietly connects major oil producers to the rest of the world every single day. And when something goes wrong here, people thousands of miles away feel it at the pump. So why does this place keep showing up in headlines tied to tension and conflict? To understand that, we need to rewind a bit and look at how things got this tense. The story isn't just about geography, it's about power, pressure, and global influence. This waterway sits between Iran and Oman, acting like a gate between regions. Ships pass through here carrying energy resources that fuel industries across continents. That alone makes it important, but what really matters is how fragile the balance is. One disruption here can ripple outward fast, and markets don't like uncertainty. Now let's talk about the tension between United States and Iran, because that's where things heat up. These two haven't exactly been on friendly terms for decades, and trust is basically non-existent. Back in the 1980s, the region saw a major conflict known as the Iran-Iraq War. During that time, both sides started targeting oil shipments to weaken each other economically. That period became known as the Tanker War, and it turned shipping routes into risky territory. Instead of fighting only on land, the conflict spilled directly into these waters. Tankers were hit, routes became unpredictable, and global attention shifted to this narrow passage. The U.S. got involved to protect shipping and maintain stability in the region. That involvement added another layer to an already complicated situation. And from there, tensions never fully cooled down. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and a new issue started dominating the conversation. Iran's nuclear program became a major concern for the U.S. and its allies. Officials worried about how far the program could go and what it could lead to. Iran, on the other hand, maintained its program had peaceful intentions. This disagreement sparked years of negotiations, pressure, and political standoffs. Sanctions were introduced, targeting key parts of Iran's economy. These measures were meant to push Iran toward limits on its nuclear activities. But sanctions also created economic strain inside Iran. And when pressure builds, countries look for leverage. For Iran, that leverage often circles back to this exact waterway. The Strait of Hormuz gives Iran a strategic position few countries have. It can influence shipping without needing to control global markets directly. That makes it a powerful bargaining chip during tense moments. Over the years, there have been incidents involving ships being stopped or rerouted. Each event raises questions about safety and stability in the region. And every time, global markets react, even if briefly. That's because energy flows are deeply connected to economic confidence. Even small disruptions can shift expectations and create uncertainty. So when tensions rise here, people start paying close attention. It's not just regional news, it becomes global news fast. In 2015, things seemed to calm down for a bit. A deal was reached between Iran and several world powers regarding its nuclear program. The agreement aimed to limit nuclear activities in exchange for reduced sanctions. For a moment, it looked like diplomacy might ease long-standing tensions. Trade picked up, and there was cautious optimism across multiple countries. But that calm didn't last if many had hoped. In 2018, the U.S. decided to withdraw from the agreement. Sanctions were reintroduced and pressure on Iran increased again. This move shifted the tone back toward confrontation. And once again, the Strait of Hormuz became a focal point. With pressure rising, incidents involving ships started making headlines again. Some vessels reported being approached or warned by regional forces. Others experienced disruptions that drew international attention. Each event added to the sense that things could escalate quickly. And escalation is exactly what global leaders try to avoid here. Because once things spiral, it's hard to contain the impact. The U.S. maintains a naval presence in the region to monitor activity. This presence is meant to keep shipping lanes open and secure. Iran sees that presence differently, often viewing it as pressure or interference. That difference in perspective keeps tensions simmering. What makes this situation tricky is how close everything is physically. Ships move through narrow lanes, leaving little room for error or miscalculation. Communication becomes critical, and misunderstandings can escalate fast. One wrong move and suddenly the stakes jump higher. That's why even routine encounters can turn into major headlines. Both sides know the risks, but neither wants to appear weak. So the situation often stays in a tense but controlled state. Think of it like a standoff where everyone's watching closely. No one wants escalation, but no one wants to back down either. That balance is what defines the region today. For everyday people in the U.S., this might feel far away. But the effects can still show up in subtle ways. Energy prices, market shifts, and supply concerns all tie back to stability. That's why policymakers keep a close eye on this region. It's not just about foreign policy, it's about economic stability too. Businesses rely on predictable supply chains to operate smoothly. And unpredictability here can ripple across industries. From transportation to manufacturing, everything connects back in some way. So yeah, this small waterway has a much bigger reach than it seems. And that's why it keeps showing up in major conversations. Let's zoom in on how these encounters play out. Naval ships monitor movements, track signals, and communicate constantly. Commercial vessels follow strict routes to reduce risk. But even with protocols, tension can still creep into interactions. Warnings over radio, close passes, and inspections all add pressure. These moments might not always lead to conflict, but they raise concern. And concern spreads fast in today's connected world. News travels quickly and reactions follow just as fast. That's part of what makes this region so sensitive. It's not just about what happens but how it's perceived. Perception can shape decisions just as much as reality. Leaders have to respond not only to events but also to expectations. That creates a cycle where every move is closely analyzed. And every statement is weighed for meaning. It's a high-pressure environment with global attention. And in that environment, even small signals matter. That's why diplomacy still plays a key role here. Back-channel talks and negotiations often happen behind the scenes. These efforts aim to reduce misunderstandings and avoid escalation. They don't always make headlines, but they matter a lot. At the same time, military readiness remains part of the equation. Both sides maintain capabilities to respond if needed. That readiness acts as both a deterrent and a risk factor. It can prevent conflict, but it also raises the stakes. That's the paradox of this region. Strength can stabilize, but it can also intensify tension. So, the balance must be managed carefully. And that's easier said than done. History, politics, and strategy all collide here, making every decision more complex than it seems. Over time, patterns have started to emerge. Periods of calm are often followed by spikes in tension. Each cycle brings new incidents and renewed focus. But the core issues remain largely the same. Trust is limited and goals don't always align. That keeps the situation from fully settling down. Instead, it stays in this ongoing state of tension. Not full conflict, but not full peace either. Just a constant balancing act. And everyone involved knows it. So what happens next? That's the question policymakers and analysts keep asking. Some believe diplomacy will continue to manage the situation. Others worry about the risk of miscalculation. Because in a place this tight, mistakes can escalate quickly. And escalation here has global implications. That's why communication channels remain critical. Keeping dialogue open can prevent small issues from growing. Even when relations are tense, communication matters. It's one of the few tools that can reduce risk. For now, the Strait of Hormuz remains open and active. Ships continue to pass through and trade continues to flow. But the tension hasn't disappeared. It's still there, just under the surface. And it doesn't take much to bring it back into focus. That's why this region stays on the radar. Not because of constant conflict, but because of constant risk. It's a place where global interests intersect. And where small events can have wide-reaching effects. That's what makes it so important to watch. So next time you hear about this narrow waterway, remember the bigger picture. It's not just about ships moving from point A to point B. It's about strategy, influence, and global stability. It's about how geography can shape politics. And how politics can shape everyday life. Even from thousands of miles away. This isn't just a regional story. It's a global one. And it's still unfolding. Right here in one of the world's most watched waterways.